Welcome to the Sundial Restaurant Bar and View at the Westin Peachtree Plaza Hotel in downtown Atlanta. We're with Chef Christian Messier. Last time we talked about all the different knives that you have in the kitchen. Today you're going to show us how to actually use them.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to start with dicing an onion. I guess you almost use that every day probably here.
Daily
Yep.
in our kitchen.
Okay.
You would use a chef's knife. I like this cleaver here. I've already taken the onion, top, bottom. I've peeled the outside. The easiest way, and there's lots of different schools of thought on how to dice an onion, but this is the way I found most easily. So now I have the half of onion. We're going to go in this way. And we're not really pressing really hard. I think that's the key, is that everybody gets really scared with, I'm going to cut myself, and they start to press down or they start to push with the knife. We're just going to go easy, back and forth motion. Now we're going to go julienne. And again, whenever you're cooking, you want to cut the same size cuts because first of all, you eat with your eyes and it looks better, but also when you're cooking, everything will cook at the same pace. Now we're going to go ahead and come back. Just going to dice. Most of the time, a lot of the dicing you'll do is for a finished product like salsa. You dice for salsa a lot. So that's a really nice dice. It's very easy. You can continue on down, all the way down, and then you can turn it and cut it the other way. But this is a pretty good dice right here. You can always go back and take your little scraps and finish them up. Very easy.
All right, so speaking of salsa,
Okay.
let's talk about dicing a tomato, obviously a different consistency. Do you use the same knife or a different knife?
I'm going to use a serrated knife. With a tomato, it's a little bit easier to use a serrated edge. A sharp knife will also work.
Okay.
But it's easier to have a little more control with this knife here.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to top it. And I like to slice it first, all the way through.
Okay.
If you're thinking about dicing, you want to get as close to a square as possible to start with.
Okay.
And then everything you continue with will be square shaped. So I now have the slices the right width this way. I'm going to come back. This way. We'll do one more turn. Just go back. And to get the best yield, I take the top piece last. I'll come back. So we can use most of it.
No waste. Okay, so one more question about the onion. For those of us who just tear up like crazy when we're cutting an onion, do you have any tricks of the trade for that?
There's
Or
lots
do
of
you-
tips and tricks over it, and wives' tales probably. What I've seen is if you refrigerate your onions, it prevents the sulfur from coming into the sulfur gas. It slows it down a little bit. So
Okay.
you're still going to tear up eventually, but if you refrigerate your onions, it'll slow it down.
Great. All right. Well, great knife tips and tricks from Chef Christian Messier. Come see us at the Sundial Restaurant Bar and View.